Meanwhile, back to politics. There's a report that Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida will not announce an exploratory committee ahead of what's expected to be an official announcement in June that he will run for president. This is coming as a new poll shows a hypothetical matchup between DeSantis and Biden. Let me see. What is this matchup? Shows a hypothetical Biden matchup, Trump being head. So here
it's a little confusing.
It is a little confusing.
If it were Trump,
there it is.
There you go. 38% would definitely vote Republican. 32%, which sort of overturns. If it's DeSantis, it overturns the argument a lot of DeSantis supporters are making, which is, well, he's more electable in a general. That number would say, no, that talking point isn't at this point accurate. It's really interesting that they're moving this up. I think it is a response to the fact that the quasi-campaign, which was supposed to bolster his numbers have actually tanked in the process, from the book tour to touring early states to the ads on TV. I mean, they're tepidly to the response to Trump's indictment. It has not gone well for the non-campaign campaign of Ron DeSantis as Trump numbers go up. So it looks like they're speeding it up so he can go be a full-on candidate.
Is that what's happening?
That's what this announcement seems to say, is skip the exploratory committee, which is kind of a signal that you're going to run, and instead announce in June that you are going to run. Man, it surprises me, I'll be honest. I thought it was inevitable that he would run at the beginning of this year. Now, 5 months in, it feels like there's a lot of headwinds and a lot of downside. Trump's running very strong, remains very popular, and their train's not yet off on the tracks. Maybe it will be in June, but it's going to run straight into a Trump train, too. So I don't know how you handle that.
Yeah.
Vivek Ramaswamy has risen a little bit in the polls, in a small way, by talking almost all positively about Trump. The DeSantis camp can't do that. I mean, you see their campaign ads have a Trump sticker, and then you put a DeSantis sticker on top of it. So they're trying to come after him without ticking off Trump supporters, and I don't see how you thread that needle. I don't get it. But
yeah. I don't know if he had to choose. If he could have done the Vivek Ramaswamy way, which is just acknowledge what went fabulous in the Trump administration, the things he did well. In fact, some of the seven, we'll have Vivek Ramaswamy a little later, as well as Larry Elders. But one of the things Vivek did was very Trumpian. He said, here's a list of all the things I'm going to do on day one. Reminded me a lot of Donald Trump saying, here are the pro-life justices I'm going to put in, something people thought, well, you couldn't do back then. You couldn't show your hand like that. And Trump certainly did for the pro-life community because he knew we needed to have them on board.
DeSantis allegedly is going to announce in June. If I were him, I wouldn't. I honestly don't see a point at this point in time. I think the jury's still out on DeSantis on if he's actually who he says he is. And I've spoken about that in the past. And a lot of you have actually agreed. There's just so much iffiness going on with DeSantis that I'm not too sure about the guy. But Joe's got some issues. Beyond DeSantis, right? If DeSantis were to run and win the Republican primary, which I highly doubt that will happen, it's by far Trump. One of the latest polls that I've recently seen, Trump was polling at over 50%. I think it was closer to 60%. I want to say it was 58 for some odd reason. 58 is popping up in my head. I might be thinking of something else, but I just don't see DeSantis winning. Too many questions. Trump is too strong. A lot of folks, a lot of you guys watching want Trump as well as myself. Not going to vote for DeSantis over Trump. Not happening. So I really don't see a point. But as far as Biden goes, I definitely think he's in a whole lot of trouble, almost no matter who wins the Republican primary. Check this out.
Our brand new poll conducted with the Washington Post, it shows major challenges for President Biden. His approval ratings at 36%, a career low. More Americans now say Donald Trump did a better job handling the economy, and Trump is leading Biden in a 2024 matchup.
So as you guys just heard there, super low approval ratings. More Americans are actually waking up to the truth and realizing that Uncle Trump was actually better than Joe. It was just the mainstream media that was pushing this out into people's faces. And I was one of those folks, admittedly. Okay. You know, gotta call it how I see it. You know what I mean? And the truth of the matter is I was brainwashed at one point as well. I didn't like Trump for some odd reason as well. And looking back on it, I think it was because of the mainstream media and how often, you know, they repeatedly said that Trump was the bad guy. You know, you repeat it so many times and you don't really dig deeper into it. You kind of start to believe it. I mean, that's just a fact. Obviously now, I've woken up to the truth. And I think a lot of Americans are as well. And also, the last little tidbit there was Trump wins in a hypothetical matchup between him and Joe currently. So, yeah.
President Biden is playing the blame game in a new interview. Shocker. According to Biden, quote, negative press is his reason for low approval numbers being at an all-time low. Watch.
All they've heard is negative news for 3 years. Everything is negative. And I'm not being critical of the press, but you turn on the television, the only way you're going to get a hit is if there's something negative. You don't. Anyway, that's number one. But number two, I think we're in a situation where you have much of what we were able to do only is going to come into play now. It's going to take time to get this done.
How negative exactly is the coverage of Biden? Well, there's a study. It was done in the first 100 days of his presidency. It shows about 60% of the coverage of Biden was actually positive compared to President Trump's first 100 days, which was 90% negative. I'm not quite sure how he could possibly be complaining about the press when truly it is mostly positive, which then I have to thank you, Mr. President, for giving us so much credit, since we're about the only opposition that's actually telling the truth, which he sees as being negative. So I guess.
Yeah, facts. We've all seen it. We've all seen it. The news only wants to tell people, nice, fluffy things about Joe and the left. Whenever there's something negative about the left, they never talk about it. And it's disgusting to watch, but let's continue on.
To this, and I'll bring you back. We got to move to this. An incumbent president is usually a lock for his party's nomination, but President Biden already faces two primary challengers, and their percentages are kind of an interesting situation. One Democratic strategist warns his path to the nomination is not so clear. Let's watch.
History suggests that any time an incumbent president is challenged in the primaries, whether it be Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, they tend to be weakened for the general election. So I don't believe that Joe Biden is out of the woods, because I think there'll be a protest vote.
The latest Fox polling, as you saw, shows challenger Robert F. Kennedy Jr. with 19% support among Democratic primary voters. Self-help author Marianne Williamson at 9%. Combine that for 28% of the voters at this point. I mean, you inch up a little bit more and you're going to be right at a third. As of now, the DNC has no plans to hold primary debates. Podcast host Joe Rogan, one of many to slam that decision. Let's watch.
How are we going to get a better Democrat if you don't let the president debate? So they won't let him debate because Robert Kennedy Jr. and what is that other woman's name? Marianne Williamson. Marianne Williamson, apparently they're both promising candidates for the Democratic Party, but they won't let him debate before the primaries. So it's like, that's not that democratic.
So yeah, as you just heard there, a very, 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 very popular individual, Joe Rogan, who has, I would assume is the #1 podcast in the land, called the Democratic Party out. You know, they always scream about threat to democracy, and yet they don't let their voters choose. Basically, it's just no, we pick for you, don't care what you got to say, don't care, anything about your opinions on who you want. We selected Joe. Joe wants to run again, so that's who you're going to get. That doesn't sound very democratic to me, even though we live in a constitutional republic, but the left always screams about democracy. That doesn't sound like democracy to me. But hey, listen, I understand why Democrat leadership doesn't want Joe to stand on stage. We've seen it. This guy's always stumbling, bumbling, and mumbling and all types of stuff, upstairs, downstairs in his speeches. I mean, he doesn't know what's going on half the time. It's crazy. So if you get on stage with somebody like RFK Jr., you're going to get exposed. I think he would be majorly exposed. And obviously the establishment wants Joe. In my humble opinion, I think that's what they want. And it seems clear to me. And I look back at something that Vivek Ramaswamy had said. I believe that's how you say his last name. Excuse me if I mispronounced it. But he said, Joe's, and I'm going to paraphrase here. I can't remember exactly how he said it, but he basically said Joe is just a husk. Joe isn't his alleged cognitive decline isn't a negative. It's a feature for the left, allegedly. And it's a feature because they can just do whatever with Joe in the condition that he's in, allegedly, of course. So, hey, listen, I don't blame him for not wanting Joe to stand on stage with, the likes of RFK Jr. He'd get embarrassed, in my humble opinion. But
Democratic presidential hopeful Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he can and will defeat President Biden in the Democratic Party primary. Well, this comes as a week after launching his long-shot presidential bid. A new Fox News poll shows Kennedy getting 19% support, but still far behind President Joe Biden, who stands at 62%. Kennedy's biggest asset may be his famous last name. He is the son of Robert F. Kennedy Sr. and nephew of President John F. Kennedy. It's a legacy he doesn't shy away from.
We need to bring this party back to the party of FDR, of JFK, of RFK, of Martin Luther King, and those values.
Now, Kennedy has gained some comments of support from unlikely allies, including former Trump advisor Steve Bannon and former Fox News commentator Tucker Carlson.
So, I find RFK a very interesting individual. And I'm going to run this by you guys and get your thoughts and your opinions on it. And you guys let me know how you feel in the comment section, right? So, RFK is obviously able to generate support within the Democratic Party. I don't know why he's running as a Democrat, because from what I've seen and heard from him, granted, not a whole lot, but from what I've heard from him, he doesn't sound like a Democrat. He does not sound like a Democrat to me. Maybe I just haven't heard enough. Maybe there's a lot that I'm missing. That is very, very possible. So please educate me in the comment section, please. Okay. But I think it would be an absolute landslide. And some of you probably already know where I'm going with this. I think it would be an absolute landslide. And the ultimate, I don't know, who's like the greatest villain or the greatest superhero or whatever, it would be the ultimate trump card. The ultimate, you're gonna lose no matter what card. If Donald Trump said, you know what, RFK Jr., how about you be my running mate? How about you be my vice president? What do y'all think? I was just thinking about that as I was, putting this video together. Like, what if he was Trump's vice? Because he doesn't sound like a Democrat. I get the label, which always gives me a cause to pause when, you're talking about supporting an alleged Democrat, especially with what Democrats have been doing recently. He doesn't sound like a Democrat to me. Maybe there's a lot that I'm missing. Y'all let me know in the comment section, but I think it would be hilarious to watch that go down and watch Democrats lose in a landslide. The Looney Tunes Democrats that still support Joe even after all of this chaos is what I mean. Not the more centrist Democrats, which is what I think that 19% is coming from. More centrist Democrats, the Democrats that are closer towards the true middle of the political scale. But what do y'all think? Offhand, I think it would be a landslide. Absolute landslide. Like I hesitate to say like a 65% of Americans would vote for Trump and RFK. Maybe 70. Nah. I think it would go just above 7. I genuinely think. Now I don't know the historical records on this, but I think it could break a record in terms of like landslide victory in a presidential race. Possibly. But like I said, maybe there's a lot that I'm missing. Y'all let me know in the comment section. Who do you guys think would be the best candidate as vice president for Trump to help pull in some of those more centrist Democrats, and also possibly even convert some people who honestly were kind of like me, how I used to be. I didn't like Trump. Honestly, I didn't. But it was because the media told me that I shouldn't like Trump, you know? It's all that was put in my face. And of course, I didn't really care about politics too much, so I wasn't really looking into it. So who do you guys think could be that centrist kind of figure, or that figure for the centrist in a few people who are just lost in the sauce, so to speak, like I was, and pull them over to the Republican Party to at least vote Republican in the 2024 election? Candace Owens, Larry Elder, RFK Jr., Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, somebody else that we aren't mentioning, Tulsi Gabbard. What are you guys thinking? Let me know in the comment section below. Like, share, comment, hit that subscribe button before you go. Peace and love. I'm out.